Why? I don't know, but it does tell me that, like, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if, oh, well, just a quick example. Alfred Hitchcock, he made a 3D movie. Dial M for Murder was in 3D. Most people don't know this. It was filmed in 3D. He was so disappointed with, like, how it helped the emotional part of the movie. He's like, this isn't really helping me. He refused to release it in 3D at the premiere. And I'm like, man, if Alfred Hitchcock can't make this work, oh man. Right? So I wonder about 3D TV. I don't know, right? But I wonder, is 3D TV maybe less like HD TV and maybe more like 5.1 stereo surround? Hands up if you have 5.1 stereo surround in your house. Yeah, you see, you're a bunch of damn nerds, right? Look out at the rest of the world, and I wonder if the penetration may end up a lot like that. I don't know. Okay, but here's another trend that's going on, customizing. Man, people love to customize. And they just, because it's nice. It's nice to make things the way you want them. And it used to be it wasn't possible. And now it's possible. It's to the point where people are demanding it. They really want things to be the way they want. You know, we've certainly seen it in video games, but it's happening everywhere. Look at candy, right? You can go and, like, put your picture on your candies. Sure, why not do that? And so this customizing is going to go a lot of places. And it's going to get farther and farther because one of the things we're starting to see people understand is eye and face tracking. And when you think about the power of being able to kind of track your eyes, people are talking about text 2.0, where everywhere you look on the page, it knows exactly where you're looking. So if your eye, like, lingers on a word, it pops up a definition, like, here you go, stupid. That's what this means, you know? But the facial tracking, you know, as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of people see this on their cameras. Oh, look, the camera's looking at my children in a creepy way. I'm not sure why it wants to do that, but it is. And as this face tracking gets more advanced, one of the things we're going to start to see with avatars is the ability to have an MMO. You've got the webcam right there. I talk, my facial expressions on my avatar on the other side. It's going to start to be very normal, very natural, and a much deeper, you know, expression of customization. And this customization relates back to authenticity, you know, which I talked about before. You know, there's people wanting to connect with things that are really real and that feel really real. And a lot of people, when they talk about this authenticity, they say, yeah, I know what you mean. You know, like this geo-tracking stuff. You're out in the real world because we can track exactly where you are all the time. We're going to make games out of that. Awesome stuff like Foursquare. And it's like, okay, is this actually fun? Or is this just like a novelty? And it's hard to tell. And it is always hard to tell with these new things. Is it fun for just a little bit, or is it going to be fun for a long time? And some people tell me, oh, well, it's going to be more fun because people are going to take things like Foursquare and they're going to combine them with awesome games, right? It's going to be like the real world, but it's also going to be like this fantasy game, and it's going to be great. We're running around fighting monsters. I'm like, you know what Foursquare plus World of Warcraft is? It's LARPing. All right? And people have a very distinct way they feel about LARPing. If you could say, oh, LARPing's not that different than sports. You're out running around and doing stuff. Sports never have a fantasy element. Ever. 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 It just never happens. As soon as you take fantasy and put it with running around, there's something about that that is just outside of the ken. I don't understand the psychology of it, but it's true. So somehow these things are going to turn into games, but I don't totally get it yet. Another trend, sharing. People love to share in the 21st century. Wikipedia, when I first heard about it, I said, that's not going to work. There's no way. There's no way if everyone can edit the encyclopedia that the encyclopedia will get better. But it totally does. It's very counterintuitive, but it works. People are sharing it, making it better. And we're seeing this in games too, right? You know, Little Big Planet and so many other games, people sharing levels and sharing the things that they made in the games. It's starting to become an important part of what's going on in games. And it can go a lot farther. There's new ways that it can go. That relates to another little kind of weird area up here, cloud gaming, that we're all going to have to pass through. And everybody's wondering about this. Do you need computing hardware in your house anymore? Or can that all happen, poof, off in the clouds, magically? Well, the OnLive guys, right, they really think, yeah, we're going to make this work. And man, I've looked at a lot of the stuff, and it's like, whoa, this looks like this works. And I'm glad I don't have to pay for their servers. But that's not my problem. But one of the things that I think they really seem to be doing right, oh, I'll get to that in a minute. One thing people criticize about OnLive, they say, you know, OnLive might be like wine in a box, right? Because, you know, you think about wine in a box. People who like wine are like, I'd rather not have it in a box. I need the really good wine. I need a CPU in my house. And the people who were like, well, I'm not that into wine, they'd rather have beer, right? And so wine in a box, like, who is this for? You know, exactly. And if OnLive ends up like wine in a box, that's bad for OnLive. But I kind of don't think so, because when you look at what they're doing with their interface, they're basing it around sharing. When you look at the things you do, sharing, 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 it's all these different ways to share what you do with other people in a way that we haven't seen on the other game platforms. And I suspect that may be their hook as we move forward. Another one I wanted to mention, transmedia worlds. Now, this is an idea that folks in the game industry are very familiar with, right? A world is not just like a movie, and it's not just a game. A world is a separate thing, and you get to it from many different ways. And when you think about it that way, you make these things that are really solid, and a lot of the success of Pokemon has definitely come from that. And then we've seen other properties that are that way, Lord of the Rings and other properties where you have many gateways to get into one world. And that's been important for us in games, because games do a lot to define a world. But I think it's going to become more important to us as we move here into the future. And one of the things I think about is if you look what's happening in the music industry, things have really changed in the music industry. They've had all kinds of troubles and problems lately, and they've moved towards what they call these 360 deals. No longer does an artist just sign with a record label and make deals with them and then go to somebody else for setting up concerts. More and more, these artists are setting up these 360 deals where it's one deal with the record label, and the record label is handling everything, every aspect of what's going on with this artist. And where does that trend come from? Well, it's because those music guys, they kind of got screwed, right? Because they did something really dumb. What they did was they based their entire business model on putting bits on a disc and selling it to people at retail, right? And then what happened is all this piracy came, and then people started selling their stuff for, you know, Apple showed up, right? Started selling things for 99 cents, and it really just kind of cut the legs out from under them. But that's not going to... Oh, shit, right? That's exactly what we're doing, right? That's exactly where we are, and that's exactly what's happening to us. And so I think these transmedia worlds connecting to things outside of the game are going to end up being more and more important. And related to that, speech recognition is, I think, another technology that's going to come along. Chris Swain makes this great analogy. He's a professor at USC. And his analogy is this, that film was not taken seriously as a medium in the beginning of the 20th century. It was treated as kind of this silly little novelty, much as kind of games are now. People say, oh, games, look, it's making a lot of money. But when they talk about serious, meaningful, emotional experiences, people don't generally look to games, just as they didn't look to film. The thing that changed film was when film started to talk. So films like The Jazz Singer started to talk. Everything changed. Film became the literature of the 20th century. It was the most defining medium of the century. It became the way people related to ideas. Games are, Chris suggests, are following a similar path. Right now, they're kind of silly, they're sort of fun, they're sort of a novelty. Is it going to be talking? And he says, no, it's not going to be that, it's going to be listening. It's when you can get to the point where the actions in a game aren't things below your neck, but are above your neck. When you have a character that you're talking to face, the character understands what you say, the character speaks back to you, and you have like a meaningful conversation of some kind, that is going to elevate this medium to something beyond the power of film, beyond the power of any other medium. And so when that technology shows up, things are really going to change for us. So it's something to keep an eye on. And another reason to keep an eye on it is once we can talk to games, it lets us play games in new ways in places we couldn't before, right? So like the whole time, I'm an American, right? So I'm in a car like an hour a day, right? And I'm not playing games in the car. It's too freaking dangerous. I've tried it. But if I could talk to my games, why not make a World of Warcraft expansion where you're just talking, and you're talking through, yeah, no, go find some orcs, you know, and it tells you what happens. You're like, oh yeah, no, attack them, right? And you can just be given these voice commands for your game, and and playing in a new place. And that's what we really need to focus on as we're moving forward, because we all know like the main places you're going to make and sell games are kind of drying up a little. It's so crowded. You go to the iPhone store and there's thousands and thousands of games. What are you going to do to stand out? The key here is to find nooks and crannies. And so I often call this kind of nook and cranny design. Finding the little bits and spaces that no one's figured out how to make a game for, and you make a game for that, and you plug it in there, right? And so like one of the, because this is going to be one of the battlegrounds. This is the way the average person spends their time during a week, you know, busted up into a pie chart. And when you look at the part of it that's like entertainment, it's, you know, not that much. We got relaxing and leisure here, and we got socializing here, but so much of it is working. And honestly, that big part of success of Facebook games is because you can play them at work and the boss doesn't notice. That doesn't work with Halo 2. I know, I've tried. And so they figured out how to jam games into your working day, and how can you figure it out in these other places? How can I get games while I'm like cleaning up my house and eating and drinking? And is there a game that could help me fall asleep? Is that possible? Games that are going to happen like as part of TV, that's certainly happening. So looking for these nooks and crannies partly in your time, partly in the demographic, and partly all over the world. And one of the ways nook and cranny, a great example of nook and cranny design is the changes that portable screens have brought us, right? So we've certainly all noticed portable screens on our phones, and a lot of people stop thinking about it there. But there's so many things that are going to happen with portable screens because they're getting more portable, the batteries are getting better, and they're getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And so we're starting to see things like siftables. I don't know if people have seen these, they're coming out soon, but they've shown a lot of press for it. It's a game platform that's like 5 little chunks. You get this little set of chunks of computing power that can sense each other's presence. And you play games on the table by like moving them next to each other, and little characters jump from screen to screen to screen. It's sort of a new way to interact with screens, because one of the things we haven't conquered is the board game space as video game people. When people want to play a game on a table, no, we don't really have much for you to do that. 4 people sitting around a table playing, no, they might play cards, but they're not going to play a video game. It sucks to play a video game that way, unless you have things like this. And so portable screens change that. Now, when I gave that first DICE talk, I'd made this joke. I'd made this joke about how nobody likes the iPad because it's like a giant digital Swiss Army knife. It only does one thing at a time, and et cetera. And the joke got a big laugh. And then I told the joke like 6 weeks later, and people were like, no, wait, really, the iPad's pretty awesome. And this is an illustration of something called the hype curve. If people don't know this is a good thing to know about as you're planning for the future. This is from some folks at the Gartner Group. And they say every technology goes through this same curve. So you've got time on the bottom and visibility, how much people are talking about this thing and how much it's in the press, et cetera. So this thing shows up, and it hasn't come out yet. And up and up and up, everyone's talking about it. And everyone's like, oh, it's so awesome. I can't wait for this thing, even though no one's seen it, right? And remember when that happened with the iPad? It was awesome. And then the day the iPad came out, it was like, oh man, so disappointing, we hate it, it sucks, it's horrible, blah, blah, blah. And I made that joke like right here at the bottom. And ha ha, got a big laugh. But man, 6 weeks later, we were up here. This is this area, the slope of enlightenment. This is when people figure out what the thing is for. As they said on Saturday Night Live, the iPad changes everything because this is the first time people are spending $500 on something to find out what it is. Right? And what is it good for? It turns out it's really good for computing on the couch. Laptops suck for computing on the couch. And certainly desktop computing is not any better. And trying to do web on your TV with your game console, that's been weak too. This is a great way to do this. It's a little nook in your life, that time you want to kind of curl up on the couch for 45 minutes and do some web surfing or play a little game. It's this little nook that like the rest of us didn't notice. So what can we learn from this? Partly, put jokes here. It's the best part for jokes. But also partly, man, there's all these nooks and crannies in our lives that people haven't figured out where they're going to put stuff yet. Oh, and just a side note, the person who figures out how to do waterproof digital pornography combined with a shampoo bottle, that person is going to be very, very rich. And I hereby dub it shamporn. So there's a 21st century industry for you. Okay, moving on quickly. So a couple more stops before that would take us to the Gamepocalypse. I don't know if everyone's noticed the change in quantitative design. It used to be us designers, we would like go and look out at the universe and we'd, it's all about our gut feel and what feels right in our experience. And maybe we do a little play testing and we look at people a little. The people who are succeeding and really kicking ass in the space now are doing things incredibly quantitatively. They are measuring exactly every click, every movement that people are doing on a mass aggregate level and tuning their games in real time to make them better. Zynga has come out publicly and talked about how this is a big part of the secret of their success, continuous A/B testing, where they're launching multiple versions of the game constantly simultaneously, fighting them against each other and letting them genetically survive and succeed. And this is a new skill and a new way of thinking, and the people who master this are going to be the ones who I think are really going to kind of conquer getting their designs to really get ahead, because it's getting incredibly competitive out of there. And this is more and more relevant as we get more and more data. And we're going to get more and more data because there's more and more sensors. Oh, and I want to mention this book, Good to Great. This is a wonderful book about management. And they talk about here are the 5 keys for companies that like run things successfully. And one of them is management by the numbers. Coming up with quantitative measurements of your business and like measuring everything by those numbers. In the game industry, we've been kind of so-so. We have an opportunity to do it now. And I think it's going to make a big difference. But as we get more and more of these sensors, we're going to have this situation I refer to as whole life tracking, where like every single thing you do in your life is sensed and tracked and all the data is coming in. And only the people who are like doing quantitative analysis of what's working and not working are going to be the ones who are able to make this succeed. And if you do all that, congratulations, you've reached the Gamepocalypse. And that might sound horrible. Do we really want to be there in that place, where we're creepily being watched all the time? And maybe it is horrible, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it could be pretty great too, right? Maybe it's actually kind of a happy place. I mean, because you've got games infused through everything. And you know how we are. We don't put up with bad games. People don't put up with bad games. So maybe the games will get better and better and better and more infused if we design them the right way. And technologies are changing, and it makes us all crazy because they're changing so fast and it makes you dizzy. Technology always changes, but what never changes is psychology. The human mind has not changed appreciably like in the last 1,000, 2,000 years, and it's not going to change much in the 21st century. So if you can learn your way around it, that's like the rock to kind of build everything on as the technologies kind of fuss and change, because the more they change, the more you're going to find the little crenellations and nooks and crannies in psychology. And so maybe, it's actually going to be pretty cool. Oh well, thanks very much.